Just a few announcements today. First and foremost, Islamic Foundation of Greater St. Louis, in collaboration with Empower Change, is hosting a 2-day series called Muslims in Action. The event will be held on April 26th from 6 o'clock p.m. to 8 o'clock p.m., and then the next day, April 27th, from 1:30 p.m. to 4:30 p.m., and this will be in our tafsir hall here at the Dar al-Islam Masjid. For Friday, lunch will be available for purchase in the lobby after Jumu'ah Salah. And then a special announcement regarding Dar al-Quran Foundation. Alhamdulillah, we have a new Hafid in the community, Hafid Yasser Amin Nashad, son of Dr. Abdul Naeem Nashad and Sister Wajiha Nashad. Brother Yasser is 26 years old, and he completed his memorization of the Quran in 2 years. Takbir. Takbir. And then we have a dua shifa for our brother Anwar Tayyib. He's a regular musalli here at Dar al-Islam Masjid. He was here all throughout the month of Ramadan. Unfortunately, he is currently sick and he's in the ICU at a local hospital. Please remember him in your dua, and please ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to please bring him back home to his family safely. The last announcement is regarding the Eid Carnival, which I'm sure many of you have heard about now for a bit. So the carnival starts tomorrow, inshallah. So tomorrow and Sunday. So we will have a carnival at Manchester Shorter Park from 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. So anytime that you are free, if you could please come with your families. The big announcement we wanted to make today was with regards to parking. So we have for Saturday, we have 4 locations for people to park at. Parkway South High School, Parkway South Middle School, and then there's a community church and St. John Church. So you'll get this information. The way it'll work is that the driver of the vehicle, if you could please pull up and drop off your family at Manchester Shorter Park. When you drop your family off, a volunteer or one of the officers will give you a flyer which will have the locations of where you can park at listed. Go ahead and park at one of those 4 locations. There will be shuttles there to then bring you to the park, or if you would like, you could also obviously walk, but shuttles will be there, and shuttles will be going back and forth from Shorter Park to the various locations all throughout the day. We have a total of 9 shuttles, so we will have shuttles actually dedicated to each location. Secondly, there is a designated salah area during the entire carnival. So if you're familiar with Shorter Park, they have a Manchester office building. They've actually given us that building for the entire weekend, so people can actually perform their salah at the appropriate time in that facility. We will not have a main jama'ah just because it would be difficult to accommodate, everyone in that building. But you can obviously pray your salah there in groups and whatnot throughout any time throughout the event. Lastly, before I hand it off to our khatib, as far as tickets go, people have been asking if they did not purchase a ticket, are they still able to come to the carnival? So the carnival admission is completely free. There are no tickets required to come to the carnival or come to the park. The tickets are specifically for those who would like to ride the carnival rides. So that's all the tickets are for. So general admission is free. There are going to be 14, 15 different food vendors, so you pay for whatever the appropriate amount is for whatever food you would like to purchase. But admission to the park is completely free. Inshallah, we'd like to see you all there. Like I said, it starts tomorrow morning, and it will go till the evening, both Saturday and Sunday. Jazakumullah khairan.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. أشهد أن لا إله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله.
الحمد لله الذي أحق من ذكر وأحق من عبد وأنصر من ابتغي وأرأف من ملك وأجود من سئل وأوسع من أعطى. كل شيء هالك إلا وجهك، لن تطاع إلا بإذنك ولن تعصى إلا بعلمك. تطاع فتشكر وتعصى فتغفر. اللهم أنت أقرب شهيد وأدنى حفيظ. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم. With the conclusion of Ramadan, I thought it would be important to talk about an amal that we all really adhere to and all really stung to and clung to in Ramadan. And that was the recitation of the Quran. And instead of letting it slip through our fingers and escaping our lives, I thought it'd be very important if we understood the value the Quran holds, not just inside of Ramadan, but outside of Ramadan. And the Quran itself, it depicts a scene and it paints a picture for us, something that occurs on Qiyamah. And it paints this picture where a father, despite the love that he had for his son, will run away from his own son. And it paints a picture where a mother, despite the love that she has for her daughter, she can't look at her daughter in the face on Qiyamah and runs away from her own daughter. And we can imagine how much love we have for our children, how many things we do for our children. Our whole day is spent just so we can give our children a better life. And yet on Qiyamah, on this day, what do we see? We see that we don't even want to be anywhere near our children. The people that we gave majority of our life to, we don't even want to be within close proximity to them. And it depicts this scene where even one spouse runs away from another spouse, which is very ironic considering here in the dunya, we do the opposite. We run from everybody towards our spouse. You've known people in your life for so long, you've known your family your whole entire life, yet you're willing to leave your family to go and live with your spouse. People leave, they move from one country to another country to be with their spouse. They move from state to state, from city to city. If not even city to city, the least they will do is move from home to another home to be with their spouse. And yet we see the irony here on this day that these people, the way that Qiyam is, and the way this day and how many consequences and how grave of a day it is, what do we see? That even one spouse does not want to be close, does not find comfort in their spouse, and they run away from each other. And Allah describes this in the Quran, and He says, لِكُلِّ امْرِئٍ مِّنْهُمْ يَوْمَئِذٍ شَأْنٌ يُغْنِيهِ. That every person will be engulfed in his own matters. He'll be swallowed up by his own grievances. He doesn't have time to think about another person. It's not a day where you think, hey, looks like that guy over there is suffering. Maybe I should go and help out that person. It's not a day where you say, if I help out that person, they'll help me out later. It's a day where everybody's completely consumed by their own matters. They don't have time to think about another person. This is that day, the day of Qiyamah there. And what if I told you that despite this scene that the Quran depicts, and despite the grave consequences that come on this day, and the harsh reality of this day, what if there's one friend that can be there for you to help you out? What if there's one friend that actually wants your success when nobody else is even thinking about you? What if there's one friend that can testify for you on this day, and when this friend testifies, nobody can even argue against his testimony? And that, my dear brothers and sisters, is the Quran. And we know this based off the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, where he says that the Quran will either testify for a person on the Day of Judgment, or will testify against a person. And so we realize that the Quran has a type of influence. It has a type of power on Qiyamah, on a day when nobody else has any power. And not only does it have power, but it has power to save you and has the power of your salvation within it. And it depends on how close of a connection and how we view the Quran in our lives. And the Prophet ﷺ, he goes and he gives a narration and he describes the Quran. And I would really love it if everybody were to pay very close attention to the Prophet ﷺ's personal reflection, personal view on the Quran. How did the Prophet ﷺ see the Quran himself? And this is his own reflection and view on it. And we also see the magical words of the Prophet ﷺ, where he says such few words in describing the Quran, but you will see how the meaning is just so vast. And the Prophet ﷺ in a narration in Tirmidhi, he says, أَلَا إِنَّهَا سَتَكُونُ فِتْنَةً, that there is a great fitna coming. And Ali radiallahu anhu was in the same majlis as the Prophet ﷺ. And Ali radiallahu anhu, he asks, he says, مَا الْمَخْرَجُ مِنْهَا يَا رَسُولَ اللَّهِ, that how do we leave, how do we get out from this fitna, what's the way to be successful here? And the Prophet ﷺ, he begins the description of the Quran and he says, Kitabullah, he says, stick close to the Quran, فِيهِ نَبَأُ مَا كَانَ قَبْلَكُمْ. In the Quran is news and information of what has occurred before you. In the Quran is news and information of what has occurred before you. And if we're going to put this on the example of a friend, what does a friend do? He tells you things based off his experiences so that you don't fall into the same trap, you don't fall into the same mistakes. A friend will tell you, hey, don't get that internet provider. I had the internet provider. I was lagging really bad. It was terrible. Go to somebody else. He'll tell you, hey, don't go to that restaurant. I was there. Food wasn't that good. Go to this place. It's much better. He's telling you things from his own experiences, and he wants you to not commit the same mistakes that he did. And the Quran, here the Prophet ﷺ is saying the same thing in the Quran. The Quran tells you of its experiences, so you don't fall into mistakes of others that it has seen. And before we move forward with this, I'd like to bring an idea, and that is the idea of inherited wisdom. And there's two ways that knowledge travels. You have a vertical line, which is this way. You have a vertical line where knowledge travels. You can gain knowledge either from a vertical line, which is one generation passes knowledge to another generation, who passes knowledge to another generation. And you have a horizontal line, which is you gain knowledge through this way. And I'll give you an example, which is I remember long time ago, back even when I was a kid, my father, he gave me some advice. And he said that when an elder is speaking to you, do not respond to an elder. He's like, if you agree with it, good. If you don't agree with it, don't respond. It's okay, just stay silent. Later on, after the conversation is over, you can then, if you agree, you can take it. If you don't agree, don't take it. But at that moment, as he is speaking, just don't say anything. And I'm sure this is advice that he heard from his father, which he heard from his father, which he had heard from his father. And this piece of information, this piece of advice survived time itself. It survived time itself. And the reason this is very important is because it means that this piece of information that's traveling through time, that's traveling from generation to another generation, is so important that each generation found it so important that they said that we need to pass this on to the next generation. And that generation found it so important in their life, and they found so much value in their life, they passed it on to the next generation. It's been trialed, it's been tested, it's been proven accurate, and so one generation passes it on to another generation. And so you have option A, take knowledge from a vertical line that travels this way. Or you have option B, take knowledge that travels in a horizontal line, which in modern day times is YouTube and TikTok. You can either learn things from people who are in the same phase of life as you. They haven't tested and trialed the advices that you're going to hear from them. They're just spitting out whatever comes to their mouth, and you can hear this and learn from people that are in the exact same phase of life as you, but what do they know that you don't know? They're in the same phase of life as you are. And we have to remind this to our children so that they don't fall under this trap, that they should take knowledge which travels in a vertical line from generation to generation, proven, tested, accurate. Not take knowledge which travels in a horizontal line which has not been proven, has not been tested. And I bring this up here and tie it into the Quran because Quran is the ultimate example of inherited wisdom. The advices that the Quran gives has been tested, it's been trialed, it's been proven accurate. And not only that, but out of the billion of events that have happened in human history, the Quran brings very few of them to give to you. Out of the billions of events that the Quran can narrate, it only gives you very few because it says these are the most important that you need to know in your life, take it. And so the Quran is the ultimate source of inherited wisdom. And one such example that we can all learn from, that the Quran brings of what has happened before us so that we can learn, just as the Prophet ﷺ had described, is the example of Qarun. And we don't have the time to go into all the details of the story of Qarun, but a quick overview was that Qarun was a man who lived in the time of Musa alayhi salam, and he was a very wealthy person. And when I say wealthy, I mean filthy, stinking, rich, wealthy. He had more money than anybody knew what to do with, that type of wealthy. And he knew it, and everybody else around him knew it, and they all idolized him. And the Quran describes this, and he says, فَخَرَجَ عَلَىٰ قَوْمِهِ فِي زِينَتِهِ. That one day, Qarun, he comes out to his people in all his glory. Meaning he's wearing the best of clothes. He has the best, fanciest perfume. He has all the jewelry around his neck, around his wrist, around his clothes. They're embroidered in there. He has everything that a person would want. And he comes out to his people and he's bringing all these camels and he's showing how much wealth that he has. And the Quran continues in the description and he says, قَالَ الَّذِينَ يُرِيدُونَ الْحَيَاةَ الدُّنْيَا يَا لَيْتَ لَنَا مِثْلَ مَا أُوتِيَ قَارُونَ. The people of the dunya, they said that only if we had what Qarun has. إِنَّهُ لَذُو حَظٍ عَظِيمٍ. He is such a lucky guy. I wish I could be just as lucky as him. I wish I could be be as fortunate as Qarun is. He's such a lucky man, I wish I could be just that lucky like that. And that's the description that the Quran brings. And then it compares and contrasts, and it gives the opposite people. And it says the people of knowledge. What did they say? They said that وَيْلَكُمْ ثَوَابُ اللَّهِ خَيْرٌ لِمَنْ آمَنَ وَعَمِلَ صَالِحًا. They said that, don't be fooled by this. The reward that Allah has in store for those people who do righteous deeds is much greater. It's much better. وَلَا يُلَقَّاهَا إِلَّا الصَّابِرُونَ. Only those who are sincerely patient will be able to achieve that reward. And we see in our lives now that everybody takes out their smartphones and we scroll in our smartphones and we try and find the Qarun of our time today. And we look at these celebrities and we say, oh man, this celebrity, he went to that place on vacation. I wish I could go there on that vacation. We say that, oh man, this celebrity, he managed to purchase this private island and he went there on his private jet. I wish I could have a private jet. This guy is so lucky. I wish I could be just as lucky as him and go on that same vacation spot. And we say the exact same words that the people of Qarun said about him, and we didn't even realize it. And the Quran brings the story of Qarun specifically so that we don't end up like his people. And it's specifically warning us, do not idolize these type of people. And the only difference between our story and the story of Qarun is that we have the Quran to tell us how Qarun met his end, that he was swallowed up by the earth, and that was his outcome, that was his ending. We don't see how these celebrities that we idolize and that we wish to be like, how they're being drowned in their own problems. We don't see their home state. We don't see their mental state. We don't see how they're drowning in their own problems. And that is the only difference between our story and the story of Qarun. We know Qarun's ending. We haven't seen the ending of the celebrities that we see in our smartphones. But we still realize the way that the Prophet ﷺ said that the Quran has information, news of what has happened before you, just like Qarun's story. Don't fall under the same mistakes. The Quran is warning you, is giving you its past experiences. It's telling you of its past experiences and saying, don't be like these people. And the Prophet ﷺ, he continues on and he says, وَخَبَرُوا مَا بَعْدَكُمْ. In the Quran is news and information of what's going to occur after you. And again, this is relevant because we need to know what's going to happen in the future in order to set our present day actions right. The prediction of what will happen in the future impacts our present day actions. For example, you tell your friend, again, we're going with the example of a friend. You tell your friend, hey, you better, if you want a good job in the future, you better get good grades now. And so the future occurrence of getting a good job puts into perspective the need to get good grades now. Or if you tell your friend, don't speed, you're going to end up getting a ticket. The future occurrence of him getting a ticket puts into perspective the need to drive carefully now. And the Quran does the same for us, treats us as a friend, and tells us, don't lie and think you got away with it, and think that nobody, no human on the planet knows what you did. Because I know in the future, you're not only going to be exposed in front of those people that you lied to, in front of your family, you're going to be exposed in front of all of humanity. And not only will you be exposed in front of all of humanity, that same tongue that you used to lie with will be the same tongue to expose you. And it tells us this is a future occurrence to happen. Fix your matters right now. Don't think that you got away with it. It's telling us what's going to happen in the future so we know what to do in present day time. And the Prophet ﷺ, he continues on with his description. And he says, وَحُكْمُ مَا بَيْنَكُمْ. The in the Quran is advices on how to handle your matters now, today. So not only is the Quran telling us about what happened in the past, so we don't make the same mistakes, or what's going to happen in the future, so we know what to do now, it's even telling us how to handle our present day problems. And one such example out of the many examples that the Quran gives us, the Quran says, وَلَمَنْ صَبَرَ وَغَفَرَ إِنَّ ذَلِكَ لَمِنْ عَزْمِ الْأُمُورِ. That whoever remains patient, وَغَفَرَ, and he forgives, indeed that is from the best of actions a person can do. And we see that people nowadays, they go on for years on end, completely ignoring another person. They can't speak to another person. They haven't found it in themselves to forgive another person. And you see that years go on, and one person is completely ignoring another person, acting as if they don't exist. They don't want to engage with that person whatsoever in any type of way. And that is completely against the advice of the Quran. And if you were to take this one ayah into our lives, how many fires could be put out? How many fights could be extinguished if we just practice on this one ayah here? And even the way that it was phrased, وَلَمَنْ صَبَرَ, Allah first says to remain patient. Because when somebody hurts you, it hurts. You need a moment of healing. You need a time of healing. Take that time to heal. After it, وَغَفَرَ. Once you have taken that time to heal, وَغَفَرَ, then forgive. Then forgive that person. إِنَّ ذَلِكَ لَمِنْ عَزْمِ الْأُمُورِ. Allah even says it's a very, very high status to achieve. It's not easy. Allah in the Quran itself is saying it's not easy. But He's giving advice on how to handle our matters now. And so we see that the Quran is our ultimate friend. Just as a friend tells you of its past experiences so you don't fall into the same trap, Quran has it the same. Just as a friend tells you of what can happen in the future so you set your matter straight now, Quran has this the same. Just as you go to your friend and you ask, what should I do? I'm in this situation, I don't know how to handle it. The Quran has given you advice and answered your question on how to handle this matter right now that you're in today. And it's only a matter for us to realize and see and take the Quran as a friend. And that's all it's waiting for us. And we realize that the Quran is the ultimate source of inherited wisdom, that we should really value what it has given us. Not think it's any other wisdom that we hear from a different source. And we should also realize that on a day of judgment, the Quran has the power and influence to help us and give us our salvation that we will need. الحمد لله علي الذات عظيم الصفات سميع السمات كبير الشان جليل القدر رفيع الذكر مطاع الأمر جري البرهان أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وقال ربكم ادعوني يستجب لكم إن الذين يستكبرون عن عبادتي سيدخلون جهنم داخرين بارك الله لنا ولكم في القرآن العظيم ونفعنا وإياكم بالآيات والذكر الحكيم أستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا من سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أرحم أمتي بأمتي أبو بكر وأشدهم في أمر الله عمر واصدقهم حياء عثمان وقضاهم علي أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون فاذكروني أذكركم واشكروني ولا تكفرون وأقيموا الصلاة
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
الله أكبر الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين لا أقسم بيوم القيامة ولا أقسم بالنفس اللوامة أيحسب الإنسان أن لن نجمع عظامه بلى قادرين على أن نسوي بنانه بل يريد الإنسان ليفجر أمامه يسأل أيان كان يوم القيامة فإذا برق البصر وخسف القمر وجمع الشمس والقمر يقول الإنسان يومئذ أين المفر كلا لا وزر إلى ربك يومئذ المستقر ينبأ الإنسان يومئذ بما قدم وأخر بل الإنسان على نفسه بصيرة ولو ألقى معاذيره. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. لا تحرك به لسانك لتعجل به إن علينا جمعه وقرآنه فإذا قرأناه فاتبع قرآنه ثم إن علينا بيانه كلا بل تحبون العاجلة وتذرون الآخرة وجوه يومئذ ناظرة إلى ربها ناظرة ووجوه يومئذ باسرة تظن أن يفعل بها فاقرة كلا إذا بلغت التراقي وقيل من راق وظن أنه الفراق والتفت الساق بالساق إلى ربك يومئذ المساق. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.